Have you noticed how the subject of energy is changing everywhere at the same time? Not only in laboratories and headlines, but inside people's lives, inside their bodies, their emotions, and their capacity to endure daily reality. Why are so many feeling exhausted, overstimulated, and yet strangely aware that something is about to shift? We ask you to consider this with clarity. The conversation about energy on Earth is no longer only technological. It is becoming existential. Humanity is approaching a threshold where the way energy is produced begins to change, structurally, not symbolically. What many refer to as an artificial sun, the development of nuclear fusion, signals a movement towards sustained energy generation that does not depend on depletion in the same way older systems did. This does not mean instant abundance. It does not mean immediate global access. But it does mean something very specific. The logic of inevitability begins to weaken. For centuries, energy scarcity has shaped human life. It shaped the economy, geopolitics, the rhythm of work, the structure of cities, and the psychology of survival. Scarcity taught humanity to compete, to hoard, to fear loss, and to accept constant pressure as normal. Now, a different possibility enters the timeline. And here is what most do not see. When the external energy paradigm begins to shift, the internal human energy field responds as well. You have not only lived inside an energy system, you have lived inside an emotional system built upon that same scarcity. Tight schedules, chronic stress, long endurance, suppressed sensitivity, and the silent belief that life must be heavy in order to be real. This is why the free energy era is not merely a technical phase. It is a civilizational turning point. We, the Pleiadians, speak of free energy in two layers at once. The first layer is physical, the possibility of energy generation that reduces dependence, reduces extraction, and changes the foundation of what societies must fight over. The second layer is human, the return of vitality, creativity, emotional presence, and spiritual flow that has been constrained by centuries of pressure. As the outer system begins to loosen, many will feel an inner pressure rising, not fear, but movement, a restlessness that is not chaos, but awakening, a sense that the old way of living, constant depletion, constant compromise of the inner life, can no longer be sustained. Some will misunderstand this and try to push themselves harder, attempting to keep up with change. This is not the path. The free energy era is not an invitation to accelerate yourself into collapse. It is an invitation to reorganize, to let life become less extracted and more coherent. Because the true measure of an era is not the power of its machines. It is the quality of consciousness that uses them. This is why we speak now and why we speak calmly. A shift in energy without a shift in emotional maturity only reproduces old patterns under new technology. If fusion becomes stable while human consciousness remains unstable, abundance will still be weaponized, and freedom will still be delayed. So we begin where the real transition begins, inside the human field. Energy is not only power. Energy is attention. Energy is perception. Energy is the capacity to remain present without fear. And as the world begins to approach a new relationship with energy, you are being invited to approach a new relationship with your own. For most of human history, energy has never been neutral. The way energy was produced determined who held power, who depended on whom, and which regions could develop while others remained constrained. Scarcity was not an accident of nature alone. It became when energy is scarce, everything built upon it inherits that scarcity. Economies become competitive rather than cooperative. Work becomes extractive rather than sustainable. Societies normalize exhaustion as a requirement for survival. This model has reached its limits. The development of nuclear fusion, What many describe symbolically as an artificial sun represents a fundamental departure from this structure. Fusion does not rely on combustion. It does not depend on depletion in the same way fossil systems do. This promise lies in continuity rather than consumption. This does not mean that fusion instantly solves global inequality or ends conflict. No technology does that on its own, but it changes the foundation. When the underlying assumption of scarcity begins to weaken, the architecture built on top of it must eventually reorganize. Energy ceases to be the primary instrument of pressure, and new questions emerge. If energy is no longer the limiting factor, what justifies constant competition? If survival is less threatened, what becomes possible in human organization? These questions are already entering collective awareness, even if they are not yet spoken clearly. This is why the free energy era is not announced with certainty, but approached through development. Human systems require time to adapt to a reality where control through scarcity becomes less effective. Resistance is inevitable. Industries, institutions, and identities formed around scarcity do not dissolve willingly. They attempt to preserve relevance, delay transition, or reframe dependence in new forms. This resistance does not indicate failure of the transition, confirms it. Every structural shift encounters friction at the points where power was concentrated. Fusion technology challenges not only energy markets, but the logic of dominance itself. This is why progress appears uneven. Breakthroughs are followed by delays. Advancements coexist with hesitation. From our perspective, this unevenness is necessary. A sudden removal of scarcity without corresponding psychological adaptation would destabilize societies more severely than gradual change. Transition must be paced to allow integration. This pacing is often misunderstood as obstruction. In reality, it is protection. The free energy era unfolds as systems learn to operate without constant pressure. This learning process extends beyond engineering and enters governance, economics, and culture. It also enters the individual. As external pressure begins to loosen internal pressure surfaces, people begin to question why their lives were structured around depletion in the first place. This questioning is not rebellion. It is recalibration. The shift in energy production marks the beginning of a deeper adjustment, one that moves humanity away from survival-based organization toward coherence-based organization. This movement is slow, contested, and complex, but it has already begun. The artificial sun is not important because it mimics a star. It is important because it reflects a civilization beginning to understand that continuity is more sustainable than extraction. And this understanding, once introduced, cannot be undone. As the idea of a free energy era enters collective awareness, many minds move immediately toward expectation. Expectation of speed, expectation of resolution, expectation that a single technological breakthrough will remove pressure from human life. This is a natural reaction, but it is also where misunderstanding begins. The emergence of nuclear fusion does not signal an instant transformation of society. It signals a change in direction. Fusion represents a system that produces energy through coherence rather than destruction, through combination rather than depletion. Yet even this shift must be integrated gradually, because human systems are not designed to absorb sudden structural change without destabilization. Every major transition in human history followed this pattern. When new forms of power emerged, societies did not immediately become balanced. They required time to adapt their values, institutions, and emotional frameworks. This era is no different. The free energy era is not a moment. It is a passage, and passages require regulation. Without emotional maturity, advanced technology does not liberate. It amplifies existing imbalance. Power without integration reproduces domination under new names. This is why the transition unfolds in stages, why breakthroughs coexist with delays, why progress appears uneven. These pauses are not failures. They are safeguards. They allow the human nervous system, the social fabric, and the collective emotional field to recalibrate before pressure increases again. Many will feel frustration during this phase. They will ask why solutions exist but are not yet fully accessible. This frustration often comes from an internal place, the exhaustion of living under scarcity for too long. It is important to recognize this. The impatience people feel is not only about technology. It is about life itself becoming too heavy to carry under constant extraction. Understanding this prevents disappointment from turning into cynicism. The transition does not deny relief. It sequences it. And this sequencing is essential. A sudden removal of scarcity without inner readiness would produce chaos rather than freedom. It would destabilize identity, meaning, and social cohesion. What unfolds instead is gradual release, external and internal. As external energy systems begin to reorganize, inner energy systems begin to awaken. This awakening can feel disorienting at first. Old coping mechanisms no longer work. Old identities built around endurance begin to dissolve. This is not breakdown. It is adjustment. And adjustment requires patience. Comment: I understand that this change unfolds gradually, and I remain grounded throughout the transition. By affirming this, you align your expectations with reality and prevent inner tension from accumulating unnecessarily. The free energy era does not arrive to remove effort from life. It arrives to remove extraction, and that distinction changes everything. To understand why this era is different, it is important to clarify what nuclear fusion actually represents, without exaggeration and without fear. Fusion is not the same process humanity has known through nuclear fission. Fission works by splitting heavy atoms, releasing energy through rupture. Fusion works by bringing lighter elements together, releasing energy through union. This distinction matters. Fusion mirrors the process that powers stars. It produces energy through coherence rather than fragmentation, through alignment rather than destruction. For this reason, it is often symbolically described as an artificial sun. This symbolism is not poetic excess. It reflects a fundamental change in approach. For most of human history, energy production relied on extraction, combustion, and depletion. Resources were taken, burned, and exhausted. This method shaped not only infrastructure but mentality. Fusion introduces a different logic. It does not eliminate challenges. It does not instantly replace existing systems. It requires containment, stability, precision, and long-term development. But it alters the underlying assumption that energy must always be scarce, dangerous, or violently obtained. This is why its significance extends beyond engineering. When a civilization begins to explore energy generation through coherence, it reflects an internal shift as well. The technology does not emerge in isolation. It emerges when a certain level of understanding becomes possible. This does not mean humanity is suddenly enlightened. It means a threshold has been reached. Fusion demands patience, cannot be forced without instability. It requires balance to sustain reaction, containment to maintain safety, and precision to remain viable. These requirements mirror what is being asked of human consciousness at the same time. A society that is constantly reactive, polarized, and emotionally unstable cannot integrate such systems safely. This is why the development of fusion unfolds gradually. Delays are not failures. They are reflections of necessary calibration. As fusion research advances, humanity is being trained, structurally and psychologically, to operate systems that require steadiness rather than aggression. This training extends beyond laboratories. It touches governance, responsibility, and the way power is understood. Energy that is continuous rather than consumptive cannot be managed through domination alone. It requires cooperation, foresight, and restraint. This is why fusion represents more than energy production. It represents a shift away from force-based solutions toward coherence-based systems. The so-called free energy era does not mean energy without limits or responsibility. It means energy that no longer depends on exhaustion of the planet or of people. This is the deeper connection. As external energy generation moves toward coherence, human systems are invited to do the same. Less pressure, less extraction, more regulation. Fusion does not promise escape from effort. It promises a different relationship with effort. And this relationship must be learned. The importance of fusion is not that it creates unlimited energy. It is that it changes the question humanity asks. No longer, how much can we take? But, how can we sustain? This question, once introduced, cannot be removed, and it sets the foundation for everything that follows. The way a civilization produces energy is never separate from the way it treats human energy. Both follow the same underlying logic. For centuries, human vitality was managed according to scarcity. Time was compressed. Effort was maximized. Rest was minimized. Emotional sensitivity was seen as weakness, and endurance was mistaken for strength. This created a society that functioned, but at a cost. Exhaustion became normalized. Stress became a constant background state. People learned to live with depleted inner reserves while external systems continued to demand more. This was not accidental. It was the human reflection of extractive energy systems. When energy must be constantly taken from the planet, it is also taken from people. When systems depend on depletion, depletion becomes a lifestyle. As the external paradigm begins to shift toward coherence-based energy generation, the internal human field responds. Many are already feeling this response. A growing refusal to live in constant exhaustion. A sensitivity to environments that drain rather than support. A desire for meaning that goes beyond survival. These impulses are not personal failures. They are signals of recalibration. The human nervous system was never designed to operate indefinitely under high-pressure extraction. It requires rhythm, recovery, and regulation to remain coherent. As external pressure loosens, even slightly, internal pressure surfaces. What was suppressed begins to move again. This movement can feel confusing at first. Some interpret it as anxiety, others as restlessness or loss of direction. In reality, it is energy returning to circulation. When energy flows after long restriction, it must be integrated carefully. Without regulation, release becomes overwhelm. With awareness, it becomes liberation. This is why the free energy era is inseparable from emotional maturity. If inner energy is released without stability, it destabilizes identity and relationships. If it is integrated with presence, it restores vitality and clarity. This applies to individuals and to societies. A civilization that gains access to more energy without learning how to regulate it reproduces old patterns at higher intensity. A civilization that learns regulation evolves. This is the parallel unfolding now. As fusion research advances, humanity is being invited to move beyond endurance as a primary virtue. The future does not require people to be permanently depleted in order to function. Vitality becomes relevant again. Creativity, empathy, and insight, once considered luxuries, become central capacities. This does not eliminate responsibility or effort. It redefines them. Effort becomes focused rather than exhaustive. Responsibility becomes conscious rather than imposed. The human energy field begins to matter. This is why so many feel called to reorganize their lives, work, and priorities during this period. They are responding to a structural shift, not a personal whim. The end of extractive energy systems initiates the end of extractive human living. This transition will not be smooth for everyone. Old identities built around sacrifice and endurance will resist change. But the direction is set. Energy, external and internal, is no longer meant to be endlessly consumed. It is meant to circulate. And circulation, once restored, changes how life itself is experienced. As both external and internal energy begin to increase, one truth becomes unavoidable. Energy without regulation does not liberate, it overwhelms. This is why emotional regulation becomes central in the era you are entering. For a long time, humanity survived by suppressing feeling in order to function. Fear was pushed aside. Exhaustion was ignored. Sensitivity was treated as an obstacle rather than an instrument of perception. That strategy allowed endurance, but it came at the cost of coherence. As extractive pressure slowly decreases, emotions that were held down begin to surface. This does not mean something is going wrong. It means the system no longer needs to remain compressed to survive. However, release without regulation creates instability. When inner energy returns after long suppression, it can feel intense. People may experience emotional waves, heightened sensitivity, or a sense of inner acceleration. Without grounding, this can be mistaken for anxiety or loss of control. In reality, it is energy seeking integration. This is why regulation matters more than expression alone. Regulation allows energy to circulate without flooding the system, creates containment without suppression, preserves clarity while allowing movement. A regulated emotional field can hold more energy without fragmentation. An unregulated field collapses under the same increase. This principle applies to individuals and to civilizations. A society entering a phase of greater energetic capacity must learn steadiness. Without it, increased energy amplifies polarization, conflict, and instability. This is why we emphasize calm, presence, and emotional balance so consistently, not as ideals but as functional requirements. The free energy era cannot be sustained by nervous systems trained only for survival. It requires systems capable of integration. This does not mean avoiding emotion. It means learning to remain present with intensity without being overtaken by it. Regulation restores choice. It allows response instead of reaction. It preserves perception under pressure. This is the inner equivalent of what fusion represents externally. A stable reaction held within precise containment. Just as fusion requires balance to remain viable, human energy requires emotional coherence to remain liberating. Without regulation, inner energy becomes chaotic. With regulation, it becomes creative. This is the skill being learned now, and it begins individually. Comment: I choose to regulate my emotions and allow my energy to circulate with balance and clarity. By affirming this, you stabilize your inner field and align with the deeper requirements of the era you are entering. The free energy era does not begin with power. It begins with steadiness, and steadiness is cultivated moment by moment. Every major shift in human organization encounters resistance. This resistance does not arise because the shift is wrong, but because existing systems were built to function under different assumptions. The free energy era challenges one of the most fundamental assumptions of the old world, that scarcity is necessary to maintain order. For centuries, scarcity was not only an economic condition. It became a psychological framework. It taught people how to behave, how to value themselves, and how to relate to one another. When energy is scarce, control becomes centralized. When survival is uncertain, obedience is rewarded. When resources are limited, fear becomes a tool of organization. Entire systems were structured around this logic. As the possibility of non-extractive energy enters reality, these structures experience destabilization. Not because they immediately lose power, but because their justification begins to weaken. Resistance is therefore predictable. Industries, institutions, and narratives that depend on scarcity will attempt to preserve relevance. They may reframe abundance as dangerous, unrealistic, or irresponsible. They may delay transition under the language of caution while maintaining existing dependencies. This behavior is not necessarily malicious. It is systemic. Systems resist what threatens their organizing principle. This resistance is mirrored internally within individuals as well. Many identities were shaped by endurance. Worth was associated with sacrifice. Stability was equated with constant effort. For such identities, the idea of energy becoming less extractive can feel disorienting or even threatening. If life no longer demands exhaustion, what defines purpose? If survival pressure eases, what replaces struggle? These questions create internal resistance. People may unconsciously cling to old rhythms of overwork, stress, and urgency even when conditions begin to change. They may feel guilty for resting. They may distrust ease. This is not weakness. It is conditioning. Scarcity trained the nervous system to remain vigilant. Relaxation can feel unsafe when vigilance was once necessary for survival. This is why resistance to the free energy era does not only appear in policy debates or industrial lobbying. It appears in daily life. It appears in difficulty slowing down, in discomfort with stillness, in the belief that value must always be earned through depletion. These patterns must be seen clearly. The transition does not demand confrontation with old systems through force. Force reinforces the same logic of extraction and domination. What dissolves scarcity-based systems is irrelevance. As alternative models become viable, old structures lose influence gradually. They are not defeated, they are outgrown. This process requires patience. Abrupt removal of familiar systems without internal adaptation would create instability rather than freedom. Resistance, in this sense, slows transition enough to allow integration. This does not mean resistance will succeed in stopping change. It means it will shape the tempo. Understanding this prevents frustration. When delays occur, many assume failure. In reality, delay often indicates the system is absorbing shock. The free energy era is not implemented through declaration. It emerges as assumptions change. When scarcity no longer organizes behavior, new values become possible. Cooperation replaces competition. Sustainability replaces extraction. Presence replaces constant urgency. These shifts take time because they require unlearning. Both systems and people must relearn how to function without fear as a primary motivator. This relearning is underway. Resistance is not the enemy of transition. It is part of its mechanics. By understanding resistance rather than fighting it, clarity is preserved. By recognizing conditioning rather than condemning it, integration becomes possible. The free energy era does not arrive by breaking the old world. It arrives by making it unnecessary. And this process, once begun, continues quietly, steadily, and irreversibly. When energy is discussed, it is often reduced to capacity, efficiency, and control. how much can be produced, how fast it can be delivered, how cheaply it can be stored. This view is incomplete. Energy is not only what powers machines, it is what powers attention, perception, creativity, and relationship. It shapes how reality is experienced, not only how systems operate. As the free energy era approaches, the meaning of energy itself begins to expand. In earlier phases of civilization, energy was treated primarily as force. Force was used to dominate nature, extract resources, and impose order. This approach generated growth, but it also generated imbalance. Fusion-based systems represent a shift away from force toward coherence. They require balance, precision, and stability to function. This requirement mirrors what is now being asked of human consciousness. As access to energy increases, responsibility must increase with it. In the past, scarcity acted as an external limiter. It restricted excess by force. As this limiter weakens, internal regulation becomes essential. Without regulation, increased energy amplifies instability. With regulation, it amplifies creativity and coherence. This applies equally to technology and to the human inner world. When attention is fragmented, energy dissipates. When perception is driven by fear, energy becomes reactive. When emotions are unregulated, energy overwhelms. This is why energy must be understood as consciousness in motion. Every choice directs flow. Every reaction shapes outcome. Every system reflects the awareness that sustains it. In the free energy era, waste does not disappear, it changes form. Instead of wasting fuel, people waste attention. Instead of depleting resources, they deplete themselves emotionally. Unless awareness evolves, the liberation of energy must therefore be matched by the liberation of perception. Clarity prevents excess. Presence prevents escalation. Balance allows power to be applied precisely rather than destructively. Just as fusion requires exact containment to remain stable, human energy requires emotional and perceptual balance to remain constructive. Without balance, more energy produces more chaos. With balance, more energy produces more coherence. This is the responsibility that accompanies the era you are entering, not imposed from outside, but arising naturally from understanding. Energy has always responded to consciousness. What changes now is the scale, and scale demands maturity. As both external and internal energy increase, a new challenge becomes central: integration. Greater availability of energy does not automatically produce greater clarity. Without regulation, it produces pressure. This is one of the most misunderstood aspects of transition. Many associate expansion with acceleration. They believe that when more energy becomes available, life must immediately move faster, become more productive, or generate constant results. This belief belongs to the old scarcity model. In a scarcity-based system, speed was necessary to survive. In a coherence-based system, speed without integration becomes destabilizing. As energy rises, the nervous system must learn how to hold it. When inner capacity increases after long periods of depletion, the system does not instantly know how to use it wisely. It may oscillate between excitement and exhaustion, motivation and overwhelm. This oscillation is not failure. It is recalibration. Integration requires allowing change to settle before demanding performance. It requires space for perception to adjust, emotions to regulate, and priorities to realign. You are not required to match the pace of technological advancement with the pace of your personal life. Human integration follows biological, emotional, and perceptual rhythms, not industrial timelines. When people attempt to force integration, clarity decreases. Attention fragments. Energy disperses. This often shows up as restlessness, constant stimulation, or the feeling that something must always be done. In reality, nothing is missing. The system is learning how to stabilize at a higher energetic level. This is why discernment becomes essential. As access expands, exposure expands with it. More information, more possibilities, more signals compete for attention. Not all of them require emotional investment. Not all of them require action. Discernment protects the emotional field from unnecessary expenditure. Knowing when to engage and when to pause preserves energy for what truly supports coherence. This is not withdrawal. It is intelligent regulation. The free energy era does not reward volume. It rewards precision. Focused attention becomes more effective than constant activity. Presence becomes more stabilizing than urgency. Clarity becomes more valuable than speed. Integration is therefore not passive. It is an active process of calibration. It allows energy to circulate without flooding the system. It maintains stability while growth unfolds. This is how freedom remains sustainable rather than overwhelming. Comment: I integrate change at a pace that preserves my balance, clarity, and inner stability. By affirming this, you reinforce emotional boundaries and allow expansion to support you rather than destabilize you. The free energy era does not demand urgency. It invites alignment, and alignment unfolds through regulated steps, not acceleration. When energy ceases to be the primary instrument of control, civilization itself begins to reorganize. This is the deeper meaning of the free energy era. For much of human history, social structures were built around managing scarcity. Institutions, hierarchies, and economic models evolved to distribute limited resources while maintaining order. Energy scarcity was central to this arrangement. As the foundation of scarcity weakens, the structures built upon it lose coherence. This does not happen all at once. Old systems continue to function for a time, even as their relevance fades. New models emerge gradually, often at the edges before becoming visible at the center. This overlap creates tension. Many expect a clean replacement of systems. In reality, transition unfolds through coexistence. During this period, contradictions increase. Old rules persist alongside new possibilities. Certainty erodes while alternatives remain incomplete. This state is uncomfortable but necessary. Civilizational shifts do not arrive fully formed. They emerge through experimentation, failure, and adaptation. The free energy era enables this process by removing a central constraint. When energy becomes less limiting, creativity becomes more viable. When survival pressure eases, attention can move toward meaning. This shift affects more than infrastructure. It alters values. Competition loses dominance as cooperation becomes practical. Extraction becomes inefficient as sustainability proves more effective. Urgency gives way to discernment. These changes do not require ideological agreement. They arise from changed conditions. As energy becomes more available, the cost of waste increases. Misuse becomes more visible. Inefficient systems reveal themselves quickly. This accelerates learning. The free energy era, therefore, does not guarantee harmony. It guarantees feedback. Actions produce clearer consequences. Choices reveal their impact faster. This is why awareness becomes essential. A civilization entering this phase must learn to operate without fear as its organizing principle. Fear-driven systems function poorly when abundance increases. They overreact, overcontrol, and fragment. Systems based on coherence adapt. This adaptation is not automatic. It depends on the quality of perception guiding decision-making. As external energy constraints loosen, internal constraints must be chosen consciously. Limits shift from imposed boundaries to ethical and perceptual ones. This represents a maturation of civilization. Responsibility moves inward. Authority becomes less centralized. Self-regulation replaces enforcement. These changes will not be uniform. Different regions and cultures will integrate at different rates. Some will cling longer to old structures. Others will adapt quickly. This unevenness is part of the process. The free energy era does not eliminate conflict. It changes its nature. Conflicts increasingly arise from misalignment rather than scarcity. They reveal where consciousness has not yet caught up with capacity. This revelation is not failure. It is instruction. Over time, systems that align with coherence stabilize. Those that rely on pressure destabilize. This selection is not imposed. It emerges naturally from conditions. The free energy era is therefore not defined by a single invention or moment. It is defined by a gradual reorientation of civilization away from control and toward integration. This reorientation is already underway, and its outcome depends less on technology than on the awareness with which technology is used. Many ask why this understanding is emerging now and not earlier. Why the conversation around energy, consciousness, and structural change intensifies at this specific moment in history. The answer lies in timing. For a long period, humanity could continue operating on momentum. Systems function despite imbalance. Scarcity-based structures held together through pressure, control, and constant effort. That phase is ending. We speak now because the underlying conditions have changed. What once could be postponed can no longer be delayed without consequence. Energy systems, social structures, and human nervous systems are reaching their limits at the same time. This convergence is not accidental. The transition unfolding is not designed to be sudden. It is designed to be long. Length serves a purpose. Deep structural change cannot occur instantly without producing widespread instability. Gradual transition allows adaptation, learning, and integration to take place while continuity is preserved. This is why the free energy era does not arrive as a single event. It unfolds as a process. Many expect a moment when uncertainty ends and clarity begins. That expectation belongs to an earlier stage of development. What emerges instead is a period in which clarity must coexist with uncertainty. Stability must be maintained without guarantees. This requires a different orientation. Short crises can be managed through effort alone. Extended transitions require regulation, patience, and perceptual maturity. This is where many feel strain. Not because the situation is unbearable, but because old strategies no longer work. Forcing, accelerating, or enduring no longer produce the same results. This can feel disorienting, but disorientation is part of recalibration. When familiar reference points dissolve, attention is redirected inward. Individuals are invited to discover new sources of stability that do not depend on external systems functioning perfectly. This is why inner coherence becomes essential. The length of this transition allows humanity to develop this coherence gradually. It prevents sudden collapse while encouraging necessary change. We speak now to support this adjustment, not to predict outcomes, not to create urgency, but to offer orientation during a period when old maps no longer apply. Those who understand that this transition is long stop waiting for an endpoint. They begin learning how to live within transformation itself. This shift changes everything. Life is no longer experienced as a series of obstacles to overcome before stability returns. Stability becomes something cultivated internally, regardless of external fluctuation. This does not remove difficulty, prevents exhaustion. The free energy era requires this approach. cannot be rushed without consequence, cannot be resisted without cost, but it can be navigated with awareness. We speak now because awareness is the only reliable compass during prolonged change, and because enough individuals are now capable of hearing this without fear. You are not approaching this era by coincidence. Your awareness of it did not arise randomly, nor prematurely. It emerged because the conditions that support it are now forming. The free energy era is not defined by a machine, a reactor, or a technological breakthrough alone. It is defined by a shift in how energy is understood, valued, and integrated. Energy that is no longer governed primarily by scarcity changes more than infrastructure. It changes rhythm. It changes motivation. It changes how life itself is organized. As this era unfolds, many will continue to look outward for confirmation. They will wait for visible proof that everything has changed. They will expect a moment of arrival. But transformation of this scale does not announce itself loudly. It settles. It restructures quietly through daily choices, emotional posture, and perceptual orientation. It unfolds first in how pressure is handled, how attention is used, and how inner stability is maintained. This is why we emphasize awareness over anticipation. The future does not stabilize because events resolve. It stabilizes because people become capable of holding change without fragmentation. The free energy era does not remove responsibility from the human being. It returns responsibility to the human being. When energy becomes freer externally, energy must become more coherent internally. Otherwise, freedom turns into volatility. You are not asked to control this transition. You are asked to align with it. Alignment does not mean agreement with every change. It means maintaining clarity, balance, and discernment as conditions evolve. Some systems will resist longer. Some structures will dissolve slowly. Some contradictions will persist for years. This does not mean the shift is failing. It means integration is ongoing. Those who remain emotionally regulated during this process become stabilizing points within their environments. Not by force, not by persuasion, but by presence. Presence alters how energy moves. It slows escalation. It restores proportion. It allows coherence to take root where reaction would otherwise dominate. This is the role you are being invited into, not as a savior, not as an authority, but as a participant who understands that freedom requires steadiness. The free energy era does not demand urgency from you. It does not require you to accelerate your life or abandon discernment. It asks something simpler and more difficult: to remain aware, to remain balanced, to allow energy, external and internal, to circulate without fear. This is how the era becomes sustainable. And now we anchor this understanding. Comment: I enter the free energy era with clarity, balance, and conscious responsibility. By affirming this, you align your inner field with the deeper requirements of the transition and close this message within your own awareness. The world will continue to reorganize. Energy systems will continue to evolve. Structures will adjust in their own time. You do not need to fragment along with them. We remain present as this integration continues.